Good morning, it's Kevin Kenny live in New York City. This is the Build series, and we have our guest today where over 350,000 people listen to his music monthly on Spotify alone. He's got a brand new EP that's fantastic entitled Plant on Feelings out right now. Okay, let's give it up for Brandon Jenner. They give you a microphone?
Yeah, they gave me a microphone. Here it is. I'm still alive and breathing, so don't worry about me.
Yeah.
That wasn't real.
We were watching the video for Death of Me. That looks like it was like a little mini movie.
It was.
Where'd you shoot it, out in California?
Yep, all of that was in Malibu, the kitchen, that was my house. So we shot it all in my house. And
Really?
Yeah, a couple of really good friends of mine, Z Berg, who's a wonderful musician. I played her the song, and she was like, we have to do this video. She believed in it, and a guy she works with, Drew Fuller, and so they directed it, and we just shot it all around my house.
How long does a video like that take?
We did that. That was 2 days of shooting.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like, I think we shot from midnight to 2 a.m. 2 days in a row.
Okay. But probably a fun hang. It sounds like you were with friends.
There's like nothing better. I mean,
Yeah.
Being on set making a video like that is second only to being in the studio with incredible musicians and coming up with just, watching people that are so unbelievably good at what they do, like working with an unbelievable drummer that spent their life perfecting being in the studio is my favorite thing in the world. So, I love creation. Being in the studio with musicians is my favorite, and then doing something like that is actually comes a close second.
Are you an artist that tries to get in the studio as much as humanly possible?
Yeah, I live in the studio. Yeah.
Really?
Well, I do all my own. Ever since I started playing music, I've been producing all my own stuff. So I'm the one who produces it and mixes it and masters it and all that stuff. So I take it from writing it all the way to, when I upload it to release it. So it ends up being me that not only does all the creative work on it, but also a lot of the tedious stuff, the editing and the stuff that comes with creating a record.
We had Adam Duritz on the show last week, and he was talking about that he himself is not a very prolific songwriter. He might write 10 songs over 4 years, and that winds up being a Counting Crows record. How are you with songwriting? Do you find yourself just spilling out of you, or do you take your time?
It's both. I'll say first and foremost, it's really important that if you are a writer of any kind, you have to carve out time to do it. You have to treat it like work, and you have to kind of create writing blocks and things where you limit distractions. We're so filled with distractions these days; they're all around us. So to be able to eliminate distractions and set aside time for you to work is really, really important. But a lot of times the ideas, the initial inspiration for songs come through life experience. I'll see something on TV, one song that has been doing really well is a song called All I Need Is You. And I wrote it after I saw a guy on TV who had lost his daughter the day before in the Parkland shooting. And he was talking about how he can't remember if the morning that he lost her, if he had said goodbye to his daughter at the breakfast table or not before she left for school. And so that sparked me wanting to write this song. And so the initial inspiration comes, but then if in the following days you don't carve out the time to finish it, that's really where the work comes in. And lately I've been writing in my sleep a lot. I wake up and I'm in the studio in my dreams, and I have this song, and I wake up, as we do once in the middle of the night, and I will actually get out of bed and do a voice memo of what was in my head, and I wake up the next morning and listen to it, and it's a complete song.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you find that the music or the songs that you write in your sleep differ at all in any style or what have you, or tone maybe, than when you're awake and you're writing songs?
Yeah, I think the ones that I write in my sleep are completely free of judgment. I mean, one of the things that we typically do, we're constantly judging ourselves and being our own critic when we're doing things, and that's part of songwriting, and I think that's why people describe, when you hear people describe what you probably do a lot, it just felt like it was flowing through me, this song. It was coming from a different place, and it was flowing through me, and I think it's because they were in this moment where they weren't thinking about somebody else listening to it. They were just allowing the music to kind of pass through, and they were writing without any judgment. And I think when you're asleep, you don't have the ability to judge yourself. It's just your mind firing off and coming up with these melodies and stuff. And so I think the music when I write, the music that I write in my sleep is very free and just emotionally kind of open, and stylistically open.
What are you most afraid of judgment-wise when you're writing songs in the studio, during the waking hours, right? Do you find that there are themes or I don't know, habits, if you will, that you are fear of judgment over, that you do get hung up on?
Like, how do you mean?
Well, I don't know. Do you find some themes of like, oh man, I don't want to come off too much this way, or oh, like are there particular aspects of music or I don't know, public perception about your music that you're particularly self-conscious about that you play defense against?
Yeah, I think that there are definitely things. Songwriting is a bit of an art form as well, and people that are really good at it, songwriters that are writing for other people, they treat it in a real formulaic way. I think you have to apply a certain amount of formula so that it doesn't come across, so that music doesn't come across as too preachy necessarily. People don't really want to be talked at and told what to do. They want to be inspired through a person's experience, and they want that line to make them feel a certain way, and they learn something through that feeling, not because you're telling them directly, this is what you should do, right? So you don't want to be too preachy. There's certain things that I definitely steer away from. Yeah, so there's a certain amount of formula that goes into my songwriting, but as long as that initial spark comes from a deep place and an energetic kind of a feeling and a place of emotion, I think that's really what passes on to other people, and that's why music endures time. I've heard people say, music, it's all been done before. Like, what new music can you make? But all the 12 notes have been played, and we've scrambled the 26 letters of the alphabet in ways that we've said a lot of stuff. But it's the unique energy that each individual person has that we hear through the recording. So when somebody sits down with just an acoustic guitar and plays, it's this unique energetic fingerprint that we've just never heard before, and that really draws us in and attracts us to it. And so, music is something that's going to last forever because human beings are always different, and they'll always have their own way of interpreting that that musical language.
But getting to I think a point of confidence or what have you, where you can actually speak from that unique perspective, right? That point of vulnerability, which is a big talking point with this new EP, that you really are the most vulnerable you've ever been as a songwriter, as a musician. How do you get to that point? How did you get to that point?
Yeah, no, it's good. I had a friend recently say, we were talking about songwriting as a songwriter as well, and he said, what would be a good thing is to sit down and write something that you're totally embarrassed to say, right? Sit down and write something that you wouldn't want everybody to know about you. And that's the first song on this record is pretty much my attempt at that, sitting down and talking about the things that I'm insecure about, the things that I feel like people judge me for, even though they don't, I haven't met them.
And what are those things?
I think that, I mean, one of the things that I say I talk a little bit about is that, I've always carried a little bit of this weight on my back, that I've been born with this last name that also is synonymous with a certain amount of privilege. And, just before I walked in here and I was looking at the pictures on the wall, one of them that stood out was the one of Anthony Bourdain, right? And just because you think you know what's going on in somebody's life doesn't mean that you actually know who they are. And he's a good example of that. Somebody that you think everything's going great and everything's successful, but obviously has a lot of dark stuff going on. And the same is true with me. I've suffered a lot of real big setbacks in my life, and I've been humbled in different ways. And I think it. I've kind of struggled with the idea that maybe people just see me as somebody that takes life for granted and is spoiled and privileged and all that stuff. So that's something that I've always, it's an insecurity that I've worked on kind of shedding. And I think that as I get older and now that I have a child of my own, I think that I've really kind of begun to shed some of those feelings.
It's kind of an asinine thought when you think about it, right? That because relatives of yours might be successful, because maybe people that share your name have notoriety or a public persona, that you're not allowed to ache, you're not allowed to hurt. It's almost like I compare it almost to like, you know, when a musician writes a beautiful body of work and it's born out of this sorrow and this pain, and then they achieve commercial success, and then we don't want to hear about the sorrow and the pain anymore. They're just supposed to be cured overnight, right? And it's when you really break it down, it's really interesting and fascinating, where people think that like whether it's money or whether it's fame or whether it's notoriety or success, that's supposed to cure the human condition in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, true. You know, the things that inspire me the most are trying to put myself in other people's shoes emotionally. And, you know, those are the things that, like, when I can really connect with somebody, and even it happens on social media, somebody writes me about how they lost their child and they're having a tough time dealing with it. You know, so putting myself in other people's shoes and realizing that we all go through stuff, I think is the only way to really connect, and it's the only way to really kind of get through life in a positive way. Otherwise, we're just living so, I don't want to use the word selfishly. I don't want it to be like such a negative thing, but I find that the only way forward and the only way to really connect with other people is to put yourself in their shoes.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly living a less full life.
Well, yeah. And
the other way, I'm saying.
And that's another, you know, that's how do you want to live your life, and what do you want to leave behind? You know, do you really want to leave behind a bunch of money for your kids and cars that are just going to go bad and stuff, or do you want to leave behind? Do you want to leave behind love, attention to the people around you, showing up for people, giving, changing people's lives for the better? You know, and it doesn't even have to be, you don't have to start a huge charity and raise a bunch of money. You can do it right in your backyard. You can do it in your home with your family and your friends. Say the things that are difficult to say to them. Say the things that you want to say. You know, I really think that it's the only thing that we leave behind is the way that we make other people feel in this life.
1,000%.
That's the only thing that's going to really ripple throughout, and that they're going to carry on to their other relationships and their kids, and they'll carry on to their kids. The material stuff won't.
No.
It's the only thing is the way we make other people feel.
The empathy that you've achieved as a songwriter and that you talk about, is that something that has always been inherent to you, or was that born out of some of these experiences you talk about being humbled?
A combination of it. You know, my family always jokes that I've been this way ever since I was a kid, that I've just been like, you know, mal-mannered and easygoing and very loving. But I also, in my own journey, I attribute it to having my heart broken when I was young, and, you know, going through heartache, and you know, I've had my own set of challenges that I think have led me to have a better understanding of my character and embracing it. But also some of it is just potentially just the way you turn out, the way you're born, you know?
Yeah. What drew you to music early on? You had a great quote recently. I think you were talking to WGN about how music may not save the world, but it certainly will get plenty of people through the night. Is that what kind of drew you to music? And like when you think back to when you first really formed a bond, not when you first heard music, but when you formed a bond with it.
Yeah. Heartbreak, listening to like Ben Harper, Forever, that song. I mean, I remember bawling, crying. But what happens is that at the end of that, you feel better. You feel a little lighter. That music provides this sense, this form of therapy.
Because you're not alone.
Yeah,
like
you're
this guy
right.
who's on this record felt like I feel.
Exactly.
Right.
And so music has helped me get through tough spots. And it's one of the main reasons why I saw it as what I felt was a noble way to spend a lot of my time, is to try to create music that then helps other people get through their own stuff. And it's a weird thing. It feels like this circle of completion and gratitude when I see people write stuff to me, or I talk to somebody at a show that talks about how my music has really helped them process something. And it's just that reminder, you know, it happens to all of us where something amazing happens and we're like, wow, I'm standing right where I'm supposed to be. And all the choices that I made in my life were the right ones because it put me in this place to be able to help this person process something. So, you know, I get that a lot these days. And it's this very weird feeling of you're right where you're supposed to be.
Well, to a certain extent, it's like mission accomplished, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. But it also further solidifies it's interesting because it further solidifies the and it compounds like the therapy that music has provided me I also get that I'm like brought right back to those same feelings when I was young and when music helped me. When somebody says that, it crushes me and it makes me feel like grateful and humbled, and I feel so inspired and I feel better afterwards after somebody shares me a story. So it's this weird thing where it's all like one is feeding the other. It's a feedback loop of just positivity, and that's what music has the ability to really do. And going back to that, that thing that I said about how music, I can't imagine what the world would be like if we never had artists like John Lennon and Bob Marley and, people that really used music as a way to bring people together. And like if we never had the song Imagine, what would the world be like, right?
Yeah.
It might not save the world, but it definitely pushes it in the direction of searching for common understanding through emotion within the human condition.
Yeah, I mean, just hearing you talk here on Build today and then also just listening to the record, you sound like a guy that has great clarity in your life right now during what you've even said is a transitional period in your life. It sounds like you've gotten great advice recently. Is that true?
Great advice recently?
Yeah. I mean, is this born out of like somebody in your life giving you some great advice? Are these all purely self-discoveries?
That's a good question. I seek out good advice a lot. I talk to a lot of people.
Who do you go to? Do you have go-tos?
Yeah, I mean, I actually have like a group that I do where I have like a group of men that we get together and we talk on once a week, and we sit down for a couple of hours and we kind of go around the horn and share. That's been really, really helpful.
All
for
around
me.
the same age?
Similar, yeah. They're a little older than me, which is cool because they're also people that I look up to and that have achieved a lot of cool things in their life. And it's just that it's a cool scenario because rather than going to like a therapist and talking one-on-one, which I totally support and I've done, when you have a group of men, I guess it doesn't even have to be men, but when you have a group of people that are all kind of saying, no, that's a blind spot, man. Like, you got to check that because that's a blind spot, and you're the only one who doesn't see it in the room. And that's a focus group on your own emotions, right? And the things that you choose to do in your life. So that's been really helpful. I'm constantly looking for people that inspire me, ways that I can dig deeper into myself and get to know myself better. And yeah, I don't want to say obsessed with, but I am very focused on my own self-improvement, self-discovery. And so much of it is just getting rid of all the blockage. There's so much blockage. We think about what people are seeing when they look at us. We think about our physical image. We think about the way we talk. We think about we're constantly judging ourselves through the eyes of other people. And a lot of the work that I do is getting to know who I am without judging myself through the opinions of other people. And that's a constant thing.
Yeah.
I'm never going to achieve.
I was going to say a huge achievement if you can get there, right?
Yeah, and I don't know if anybody does. I mean, I think even some of the greatest gurus have said that it's not. They're still in deep practice trying to get to a place that they know isn't really obtainable. You just get a little bit closer and closer.
Yeah, it's the journey. On the theme of just this sort of newfound awareness that you do have, what's a lyric or maybe even a song that you can point to on this project that you go, wow, I would never have had the guts to say that or write that or sing that a year ago?
Yeah, I mean, it's going back to that song, Anybody. I had to think about I live in a life of luxury given to me, all of my things I did not earn.
Right on.
And that's a weight that I think that people don't understand, that when people are born into this thing of perceived privilege, and I'll say perceived privilege because success and happiness don't necessarily come from fame and fortune, right? So
they rarely do.
They rarely do, totally. But we also, we get caught up in this thing where if you achieve fame and fortune, you also achieve like this enlightenment, this happiness. You have everything you want. You have all these things. And so I think some people perceive it that way. And so I think that, I just because you were born in, that's this weight that I've carried around, is that other people will just see me as somebody that is taking life for granted, doesn't take it seriously, has never suffered, never gone through stuff. And I'm glad that I had the courage to say it. I don't know if it really is. I don't know if it's courageous. Like, I don't want other people to think that it's courageous. It's courageous within myself. I'm proud.
But isn't that even like a little self-conscious, right? You don't want to be perceived as thinking, you know what I'm saying? Like you sort of just added a caveat to that, but it is courageous to you. It feels courageous to you. So shouldn't you admit that?
Feels courageous to me. It's a personal achievement.
Yeah, personal victory.
Yeah.
Which you should celebrate.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't expect others to see it as, I don't want to like a pat on the back and say,
Right,
good
right.
job, man. You're
But you can have
courageous. I don't
personal
really want
victories where
that.
you don't need, adulation, so to speak.
Right.
Do you find that when you trace back your affinity for sort of the indie singer songwriting world that you find yourself in now and you do such a great job in, do you find that as almost a response to what that lyric is alluding to, maybe like a more posh sensibility? Because when you think about, you could have made any music in the world. You could have been drawn to any style of music. You were drawn to something that has incredible heart and has incredible meaning and is very much DIY.
Yes. I think that people make the music that suits their demeanor most of the time. So if somebody's very outgoing and energetic and they come into the room and they're jumping around and they're like, yeah, they're typically going to make some, and they're fired up and they want to make music that makes other people feel that way. I'm a pretty relaxed guy. Sitting down with a guitar and reading something that's terribly sad or seeing, kids being hurt or killed because of bombs in Syria or whatever it is, that's just like what inspires me to make music. And so I sit down with a guitar and I want to write something that makes people feel and have empathy. And I think it's just my demeanor, But I've also, maybe it's because I'm a Gemini and I don't know if it comes out in other ways because I'm pretty much even keeled, but musically, I do really like groove. I'm somebody that's just always loved pocket and a good groove. And so that's kind of like the music that I've been wanting to make lately. And I played a show in Malibu just the other day where it was almost entirely, I wrote like a set that is almost entirely like funk soul,
That's awesome.
Yeah, so, in that way, I'm also kind of like stepping out of my shell and allowing myself to be a little bit, allowing that part of myself to come out a little bit too, because I definitely am also a bit of a shy person. And not wanting the adulation of, like we talked about before, is also something maybe that I need to overcome a bit.
Yeah. I got a kick out of I don't know if it was Throwback Thursday, but it was a great picture of you at like 10 or 14 years old, and David Foster's in the back. And I loved seeing it because I think, is the only guy that's ever done the interview on Build from a piano. It's actually pretty awesome. He was like, we got this big piano when David was on the show, and one of my favorite Build episodes of all time. And you were somebody that had a really unique view to his studio recordings and studio sessions as a kid. Do any pop out as just like you look back, wow, I cannot believe I was in the room when that was happening, or when he was working with this person, or?
Yeah, I remember Whitney Houston coming through the house and hanging there for a while. I remember Madonna coming and hanging, and Celine Dion, who we knew, before she was really Celine Dion. She was always super talented, and I have a lot of memories like that. But the thing that David's been influential in a lot of ways. He always allowed me to come into the studio and be a wallflower. No matter who was in the studio, he allowed me to like come in and sit on the couch and watch the process, which really contributed to my taste for good musicianship, which has helped with my producing, and then just the record-making process in general. And I think that also is part of why my favorite place to be in the world is in the studio, recreating this thing that I watched my dad do. And then he's also, to David's credit, he also knows that the reason why we make music is to say something. And I remember when I first started really pursuing it as something that I wanted to do and commit more time to, he said, do you feel like you have something to say? Because if you don't feel like you have something to say, then there's other things you can do in music, but it might not be songwriting. And I just remember as soon as he asked that question, I just was like 100%. I've always felt like I have a lot to say. I do want to inspire people. I want to share my perspective of the world. I think it's unique, at the very least. And so he's been extremely influential.
That's awesome. I want to get to some fan questions before we go today. And the first is going to come from the front. No, it's going to come back there.
Hi. I was wondering, is there an artist that inspires you the most?
That's a good question. There's so many. Bob Marley is maybe somebody that really does inspire me. I loved his songwriting. I loved his vibe and attitude. Bob Dylan. I guess I have a thing for Bobs, I guess. And then I listen to a lot of like some new stuff that I've been listening to on like the pop side. I really like Billie Eilish. I think some of the stuff, the records, and then her brother, the Phineas, or whatever, great, really great record making. I love this songwriter named Andy Schaaf, who's really wonderful. He's like, I think his just songwriting is great. I've been listening to a lot of new music. Charlie Puth, right? That's another one. I like that record making. I think he sings well. And yeah, I'm always inspired by people. And what inspires me most, there's like making music and studio stuff, but then there's also artists that are just really living their authentic selves. And that's the thing that inspires me the most. And it doesn't even have to be in music. It can be comedians. It can be actors. You know, how could Bill Murray not inspire people to just, you know, be more like themselves? So it's people that are living their true selves unapologetically are the people that inspire me the most.
Great question. Great answer. Time for one more.
Hi, I have a question from our website. Hi, Brandon. I have been annoying my local karaoke joint to add Death of Me. What is your go-to karaoke song?
I don't think I've ever done karaoke. No, I don't think so. No.
Well, let's say you did. What would you do?
Oh,
You can't pick
man.
one of your own songs.
It would be like a 90s rap thing. You know?
Okay.
It would be like Dre or Snoop Dogg or something.
All right.
Because those are the only things that I really know every word.
Every word.
You know? And somehow it's lasted through the years. And you know, yeah. There was a lot of, I listened to all that stuff. Maybe some Al Green. Like Al Green would be good too.
I like that.
Yeah.
I don't know where she went, but yeah. All right, we're unfortunately out of time, but Brandon, thank you so much. You're headed to Toronto for a show and also Chicago.
Yes, sir.
Are tickets still available to these things?
I believe so. Yeah.
Fantastic.
If not, you can always write me on Instagram and maybe I'll figure out a way to get you in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Brandon, pleasure, dude.
Good man, Kevin.
Thanks
Thank
so
you,
much.
sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching.